Hello and welcome back. This will be our 101 for the crown chakra. This will be our last chakra in the 7 series meditation mantra, the crown, also known as the Sahasrara. This particular chakra is, I guess we can consider it to be one of the most important ones in order to be fully integrated with the body, mind, and spirit. This chakra is an absolute must. And this part of the energy system reflects the human spirit. And of course, spirit can mean a lot of different things to different people. Even as we speak about our crown chakra, it could have a range of meanings as well. This is what we're calling the higher realm as it pertains to how our brain functions around that concept. It's not only dealing with our connection to our higher power, or for some it would be the energy of the universe, our creator, God. Some of us would call that, source as well. And others would just see it as an overall total outlook on our existence here in this place and time. Anytime we have that desire to instinctually, understand who we are, or we ask, how it is that we fit in with the overall big picture or the grand scheme of things. This is our 7th chakra at work. And this is the place, this is where that questioning comes from. To understand on a deeper level, it's our crown chakra at work. When we start to ask for meanings around life, or where does our desire to learn and perceive come from, and how we actually integrate lessons into life, it all comes from this chakra. This is also where inspiration, comes from certain moments of understanding, how we say that light bulb just came on, or we had an aha moment, or this deep sense of connectedness to everything, created, even if it's just for a small second. This is the 7th chakra, also known again as the crown chakra. Some people might call it the spiritual chakra, or the 1,000-petaled lotus chakra. It's also known again as, I stated a moment ago, the Sahasrara is how you say that. And that's a word in Sanskrit, as all of our language for the chakra has been in Sanskrit. Now this word, Sahasrara, is translated as 1,000-petaled or 1,000-spoked. And this is in reference to the 1,000-petal lotus flower that is symbolically represented through this chakra. You may even see this 1,000-petal lotus chakra inverted on a crown of a head in pictures as this concept is relayed. It's someone sitting upright, and you'll see on top of their head there's this lotus, this ancient lotus looking flower. It's a symbol of spiritual flowering. And as we notice, this is actually a flower that we've also seen float on ponds. And it actually has roots that actually extend all the way down to the bottom of that muddy pond. In that same way that flower, the roots of the flower extend down into the murky mud substance, we have this spiritual relevance to that as well. Out of that root being plunged down into that pond comes this beautiful, pure white flower though, right? And that's symbolic of this spiritual experience that we have. Many times, we're talking about our experience in the world. Sometimes we can consider it to be rooted in a very dark existence sometimes, but we also have the potential to allow it to blossom spiritually even through that. Also, the fact that it is inverted or turned upside down on the body in this traditional representation, if you've ever seen pictures of that, it also can suggest that the crown chakra is rooted in heavenly spaces, and it extends downwardly to the earthly realm to each of us. And if we look at it that way, it's kind of like picturing a divine presence or spirit, or whatever you would call it. We could call it goddess, God, whatever you call it, but reaching down to touch us or to kind of make connection on the crown of the head. It's almost like a touch of blessing, you know. And this is really our connection to our higher source, something greater than we. And it is sacred proof that we are, you know, an integral part of something greater, whatever that is. This is the essential communication that happens with the higher realm through the crown chakra. This particular chakra is described as purple in color, or it could even be like a darkish bluish color. Sometimes it's described as white. For each of us, as we work with this chakra, we can definitely use whatever feels good, whatever color you sense, whatever's coming through as we're working with this chakra is okay. So for this particular chakra, there's no traditional element associated with the seventh chakra. There's nothing that I found that can point to anything that's been given that would actually extend beyond the physical aspect of the earthly elements. But some would say that the element is actually thought itself, right, for this chakra, which wouldn't be physical. It would be kind of like a spiritual element. It would represent, again, that connection with spirit, which makes sense because we're talking about things like expanding our minds or tools that enable us to understand and communicate with higher frequency. And, you know, however you see it, goddess, God, or the energy of the universe, source, however you see that, not only is there no specific element associated with the crown chakra, there's also no literal sound. In the cases of 1 through 6, as we have already done, we were working with sounds that coincide with that chakra. Instead of the seed of the crown chakra in sound of goddess or God or the universe speaking, right, there is a known sound, the A-U-M or O-M. Rather than actually perceiving a human voice saying anything at all, some would interpret that sound of this chakra to be the sound of breath. And it's typically in this chakra through meditations. For this particular one, there is no speaking. Instead, there's the feeling of a vibration of the universe, right? And of course, we know that the crown chakra is located slightly above the crown of the head. This chakra encompasses the brain, the cerebral cortex. There's certain external layers of gray matter that cover the cerebrum and the cerebellum. The cerebral cortex is the most highly developed part of our brain, and it's responsible for the most advanced human brain functions. And it's for things like thinking and understanding, analyzing, and integrating information. So with this chakra, the question often arises, okay, but who am I? You know, so this is a question that is thought about through the course of working with this particular chakra often. And this is where all the parts of who we are integrated in certain systems of belief systems and spiritual practices. There's the belief that spirituality itself is separate from physical existence and is actually sometimes considered to be unreal or inferior or somehow on like a worsened state. maybe something even to deny with the concept of the chakras. This type of ideology is not recognized. It defies it as we look at the first chakra all the way down through the seventh chakra. Each one of our chakras represent an integral part of who we are in every aspect of that being or that reality, and each part develops out of the one below it, right? So it's like walking up a ladder. By the time we get to the Kundalini, as it reaches the crown from the root, we experience what we call complete integration of all parts of our instincts, all parts of the physical urges that we experience, our feelings, our relationships, our compassion, our communication with others, our intuition, and our place in the universe. Within this chakra, this seventh chakra, we have the ability to see all these parts come together and integrate them into one beautiful, exciting, fascinating, endlessly revealing existence. It just gets better and better. And even as we connect with this greater part of our existence, we connect with our higher power as well. It doesn't diminish who we are, but rather it enhances and clarifies who we are. When we talk about spirit, we're talking about something that's, of course, very complex, and it actually takes a higher brain function to even open up to understand that or try to understand it. And even then, we can only grasp a small part of that. We're just scratching the surface of what it really means. And again, depending on what culture or belief system you come from, we all see spirit in different ways, but most would agree that it is something that it's also something outside of us as well as in us as well. It's both at the same time. So the crown chakra actually holds that connection both to our own spirituality and to the universal spirit that actually resides within us and beyond us. And the seventh chakra, the crown chakra, acts as this entrance way that opens and welcomes this greater existence, right? This greater opportunity to experience that life force. So whatever you call it, whatever you picture it to be, whatever works for you, that's what it is, and that's fine, right? But it's as long as we all, and I feel we all have that sense of that greatness, and it's the same, no matter how you perceive it. That feeling is the same, and it's recognizing the existence of something bigger, right? And it's opening up to that and inviting that in, or giving yourself to that, or joining with this greater energy that happens through the seventh chakra. And when we open up to receive that, God, the universe, source, however you see that energy actually receives what we give and gives back to us a greater reflection of what we actually are, something bigger. And we're never alone because of our ability to connect. Not everybody is tapped in spiritually or religiously, and so this could present difficulty for some, but that's okay. Even if the seventh chakra does not, speak to you in that way, if it doesn't feel like it's something that's needed at the moment that you're working with the chakra, that's completely fine. It can still be open. It could still be giving, and it could still be receiving, like a modem, like an internet modem. Think of an internet modem, how it's always on. You may not be using it at the moment, but it's readily available for you when you're ready to tap in. And so you don't necessarily have to be using it at the moment, but it could still be there and available connected, working, ready for you to tap in through, though many would relate it to the lens of this religious type of thing, it doesn't have to be related to religion. Now, when we're young, let's talk about being young. This tends to be really easy for kids, connecting spiritually, when it comes to visions and perceptions. Those type of things don't really surprise them because they don't have anything restricting them usually yet. Now, when a child is reared under religious environments that are sometimes very restrictive, that may pose difficulty later on with spirituality, especially when it comes to having when it comes to rejecting a specific way of thinking that you've been taught, resulting from the upbringing. Now, in the same way, those children that didn't have any type of spiritual connections or experiences during their upbringing or rearing could also, possibly experience difficulties because they really don't have a reference point, and so they have to kind of develop or build up from scratch, from nothing. But I guess the important thing would just be not to restrict how a child wants to actually realize their own spiritual perceptions. It would be the most healthy way for a child. I just wanted to put that in there. Now, this chakra also governs the ability to learn as well. Everything that comes in through our learning perceptions comes through this chakra. This is reflected through what I was mentioning earlier, parts of the brain. One of the parts was the cerebral cortex. And if you ever want to engage your seventh chakra, you just learn something. Right? Just keep learning and you'll keep engaging your seventh chakra. It's when that learning stops that the seventh chakra actually begins to falter. And so it's important, even as it pertains to as we continue to grow and mature and get older, to always continue to be interactive. And we've heard studies about Alzheimer's and how that happens, but it's important to continuously allow ourselves to continue learning. And knowledge isn't just about sitting down and taking classes or that traditional learning module that we know very well, but it's about exploring. It's about allowing ourselves to inquire and delve into new experiences, whatever they may be. It could be taking a workshop. You may have wanted to do some hot glass workshops. It could be doing something you love, like music or painting, or it could be taking time to build a web page. It could be learning to play a new instrument, or it could actually be the traditional way as well. Finishing your degree, that classroom setting. Knowledge is about engaging with the greater world outside of self, stepping outside of our comfort zone to discover what it means for you and what is happening and what you're becoming at any moment in time, right? That's what learning is about. And it's when we're conscious that our seventh chakra is actually engaged and working. This chakra holds a huge capacity to think, from philosophical musing to simply just being woke, or even, not being woke, thinking about sleeping, or maybe if you fainted, or maybe if you're in a coma. The seventh chakra is closed if that's happening. But that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be asleep to be existing in the world unconsciously, right? I hope you get that. When we're woke, in a sense where we're living life and we're setting intentions and we're engaged, we're actually in a place where things begin to open in this seventh chakra. energy center in our body. Now, to talk about something a little bit more controversial, we're going to talk about the soul a little bit, of which not everyone really falls into the idea that there is a thing that we call the soul. And that's okay, but we're still going to talk about it. That thing that many of us believe does not die when the body ceases to exist here on earth. Now, for those of us with open seventh chakras or open crown chakras, the presence of the soul is self-evident, right? And we know it because there's that feeling inside and around us that something greater is there. There's the feeling of something beyond the physical. And if you've ever experienced being around someone who is about to pass over, or someone who just passed over or transcended, you know, if you are tapped in that way, and there may have been like a sense that there was some part of that soul that was left behind for some period of time after that person took their last breath, right? And it doesn't always mean that it's right at that exact moment. Sometimes it's right after it happens. Sometimes it's a little bit after. It could even happen before, you know, but there's the interaction that happens, proving that as well as after that person has passed on, that there's still that interaction that's happening. Now, nobody's ever been able to actually prove the existence of an actual soul. A lot of people believe that the soul is in part that part of us that lives within our body, but is not part of the body. You know, we can't see it on an x-ray or on any kind of medical equipment. You know, we can't measure it in any type of way. It's almost like the presence of life, the presence of life force energy, you know, that part that's imprinted within our individual signature, coupled with the signature of the universe or God or source as well. It's almost like a joint signature on a contract. And so the seventh chakra actually is really a reflection of both the body's consciousness and the spirit's consciousness. It's almost like we could call it the soul's home. If there was such a place where the crown chakra could speak about the soul and show how its spiritual health is reflected, that's what it would be. It would be like the soul's home. And it has nothing to do with whether or not we're saved or damned to hell, right? That's not what we're talking about. This is a concept that's totally foreign to the philosophy that we're talking about when we're talking about chakras. So with that being said, I just like to kind of tap into some things that correspond with the last chakra, the crown chakra or seventh chakra, the Sahasrara, right? So let's tap in. Some of the things that correspond with this seventh chakra. For the animal, spirits of the deceased or ancestral spirits tap in under animals. Very interesting, right? For the archangels, we have Archangel Jophiel. And the part of our body that corresponds with this part of our chakra is a casual or the auric energy or the auric field. The color is, again, purple or that white color as well. The element is thought, or we're talking about gods or goddesses. The food, it doesn't really list one. This talks more about that spiritual aspect. So this goes into fasting. It's the absence of food. But if there were a food that we can consider, it would be like dark blue grapes or blackberries or garlic. The gemstone or the crystal would be a diamond, an amethyst, or a quartz crystal. For goddesses or gods, we're looking at Allah, Amakala, Inanna, Nut, the Great Mother, Odin, Shiva, or Varuna. And for herbs and spices, we have Boru, Kola, or Nutmeg. And for incense, we have Lotus or Gotu Kola. That was Gotu Kola. And then for keyword, we have freedom as the keyword for this chakra. For the kinds of people, we're looking at saints, prophets, or true gurus. And the metal would be gold. The musical note is the key of B, or the musical note B. The number of lotus petals, as we discussed, was 1,000 for this flower. The plane of existence is reality. The ruling planet is Ketu, the south node of the moon of Vedic astrology. And in Western astrology, the crown chakra has no planet but represents the universe, the source of enlightenment. And then the seed sound is the universal vibration, right? Remember we talked about that? It's vibration. And it's the sound of Om. The vibration makes the sound Om. And then the sense is going to be perception of God or goddess. The sense organ, of course, is the brain. The shape is a circle. The tarot suit is actually the entire major arcana. There's 22 dominant tarot cards in the standard deck for the major arcana. And so the verb would be to know. The vowel or vibration again would be Om or Om. And then the yoga path is Jnana Yoga. And this is the yoga of knowledge. And it's practiced by meditating on the self and studying spiritual texts. And lastly, the zodiac sign, there are none. The crown chakra energy is of spirit and beyond the material realm. And as such, it is beyond our body, but within reach of our enlightenment. All right. Very interesting. And this video would actually conclude our chakra one-on-one video. This is number 7. This was a 7-part series. And so this is the very last one. And so if you have not had a chance, I invite you to go over and take a couple of moments, more than a couple, take about maybe 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes to yourself in a quiet place where you will not be disturbed, and tap onto the crown chakra meditation mantra and allow yourself to go there. Allow yourself this space and moment and time to kind of delve into this part of your energy center. Whether you're new to this or not, that meditation mantra is going to be good. Whether you're just awakening this energy center or whether you are just energizing it, right? And so I invite you to go over and treat yourself. Treat yourself. You won't regret it. And so I do thank you. If you made it all the way through, right? As I stated, this was definitely a process, right? You can't, it doesn't really help. It's not as effective, I'll say, to jump right into the third or the fourth chakra. This really is most effective if you treat it as kind of a building experience. And so we started from the root chakra on purpose. The root chakra is considered to be the base, the foundation. Everything builds off of the root chakra. And so when you stabilize and balance the root, then you move up to the sacral, and then you move up to the solar plexus, and then you move up to the heart, and then you move up to the throat, and then to the third eye, and then finally where we are here, right? And so the crown chakra. So hopefully you've been following along. If not, it's all there. You can go back to the very first chakra, which was the root. I am also heading what I call transformational teaching. And so some of these videos will only be available within my teaching modules. And so if you are definitely interested in learning more about your chakras, also learning more about transformation and awakening overall, hit me up. I'll leave my email in the description box. Definitely send me an email if you're interested. I would be more than happy to offer any type of guidance that I can offer if you are interested in learning more and accessing these other tools that I have available. But with that being said, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for the space and your patience as we worked through these energy centers. I hope by now you have a really good sense of your energy and how it works and how it feels, and you know what area you can actually go in and focus on and pour intention into, just to kind of bring yourself back into balance. Hopefully you have a better understanding. All of this is just a basic level learning, right? It's something to give you just kind of like a leg up. And if you decide to go deeper into that, listen, there are so many ways you can do that, so many tools and books and ways that you can explore deeper. This is just the beginning. And so again, thank you for taking this journey with us. Until the next one comes up, you take care of yourself, okay?